Welcome to ChiroSphere, where we talk about all things chiropractic and some things not so chiropractic. I'm Christy Hudson, filling in for your host for ChiroSphere, Dr. Ray Foxworth, the CEO of ChiroHealth USA, the network that works for chiropractic. And today on ChiroSphere, we are thrilled to welcome Dr. Jay Shetlin. We are super excited as we have been friends with him for over a decade. Many of you might recognize him as the president of the Whiplash Group, a premier training and coaching organization dedicated to helping personal injury doctors and attorneys raise their clinical, ethical, and professional standards. He hosts the critically acclaimed Personal Injury and Practice Success Summit in Salt Lake City, as well as destination based practice growth events in places like Hawaii, Mexico, Nashville, and Florida. He's the author of 8 books, and through the Whiplash Group, he trains professionals nationwide on evidence-based MBC injury care, medical legal documentation, ethics, and interprofessional communication, all with the goal of improving patient outcomes and accelerating practice success. And I can totally talk. You can tell that this is not my day job, and I'm filling in for the boss today. But
Hey, you
thank
nailed it.
you. Well, I appreciate it, Dr. J. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so excited about this. Like I said when I was doing the intro, I am pretty sure that I have known you and you've been a friend of the ChiroHealth family for over a decade. And what a decade it's been, man. You've accomplished a lot and gone and been everywhere and done so much. So it's great that we get to catch up right here with our audience today.
It's always great to just visit with friends, of course, and when we can share that friendly visit with others, that's wonderful. I hope they can glean some really good information today.
Well, I am super stoked. One, I love that you do events like in the most beautiful places in the world. And I am pretty sure that you gather that inspiration because you have practiced like all over the place, US, Asia, Europe. So I'm really curious, how did those diverse cultural experiences shape your approach to chiropractic care and then specifically your area of expertise, personal injury?
A great question. I started off living in Asia for 3 years. I both did a Christian service mission and I was an English teacher to help pay for college in those early years. And what I noticed there in my young and pliable mind as I'm looking at going into chiropractic. I've wanted to be a chiropractor since the 5th grade. And here in these early college years, I was over in Asia and actually had to go to the hospital when I was over there. I just noticed that the natural health approach that they do, and I'm saddened how Western medicine sometimes puts that down. How, like case studies, they have thousands of years of case studies using herbs and acupuncture and things with positive outcomes. And yet Western medicine is like, oh, unless it's a double-blind study, it doesn't count. And we don't always do those so well either. So I thought that was very eye-opening with the Asia perspective of natural health care and how they really strive to help the body help itself naturally, which is the chiropractic philosophy anyway. And then they have bone setters over in Asia where they manipulate the spine to try to free up the nervous system, though it may not have all the depth of research and study that chiropractic has. It's like, what a great way. It's been around for so long, and yet they've had that for so long. And then, of course, studying in the U.S. and going to Palmer, and then practicing in the U.S. and practicing in Europe over in Portugal. It was neat to see, and this, I might push a few buttons for some people today. I'm a very transparent person. I don't like to hold back. I'm a blue person. I like everybody to kumbaya, let's all get along. But I also like to say, hey, look, the truth hurts sometimes, but if it helps us learn and be a better version of ourselves, so be it. The frustrations that we have in the US as healthcare providers is our population, our target population, has given away the power of their health to third-party corporate entities like insurance. Where a common thing we'll say, and I think it's some of the most toxic words we can hear, is when a patient says, oh, if my insurance doesn't cover it, I can't afford it. Whoa, how do we get into that thought process? It's just so heartbreaking to me. And when I was practicing over in Europe with a great doctor, Dr. Hatch is amazing. And he, Portugal is to, Europe as California is to the US. It's almost the same it's the westernmost country, very similar shape. California has 10,000 chiropractors. I was the 23rd chiropractor in the country of Portugal when we went over there. And
Wow.
Dr. Hatch was just committed to like, we have got to build more clinics and get this out there because we would see more people in a day in 5 hours of our workday than in my successful practice here in Utah that I would see all week. It was just such a high volume cash practice. Insurance didn't cover him. Car insurance didn't cover it. State insurance didn't cover chiropractic. We were cash based only because that's all we could do. Car accident patients would come in, other patients would come in, and this is where it gets weird. Well, I shouldn't say weird. This is where the philosophy is different from the US. We would do the same day 1, day 2 report of findings that I would do in the US. But these people over there where the average income at that time was 1,000 euros per month, $1,200 a month, average income. They valued their health where they would go. Of course, they don't live paycheck to paycheck and max out their credit cards like we do in America. They would go to their bank, withdraw their savings, and invest in their health for a month, 90 days, a year. Happy to do it, following the treatment programs and protocols and having outstanding success because they had skin in the game. It wasn't dependent on a third-party payer. So those are some of the value drivers for me that really helped form my confidence in educating patients to stay, pay, and refer in the office, regardless of if it was a car crash, which is my specialty, or cash patient or a family patient, or even major medical. I educate them away from the major medical model to just become a cash patient. But anyway,
What an incredible experience, though, to see how people make decisions differently, really, in other countries, the things that they prioritize. But in reality, it also shows too, because, even in the US, people will prioritize their wants sometimes above their needs. Every time I teach a class, I tell doctors all the time, I was like, people pay for what they want.
yep,
Nobody needs 40 Stanley Cups, one to match every outfit for every day, but our patients have them. They really don't need Starbucks every day, but they come into your office with them,
absolutely.
right? Right. So, how do we become what it is that they want? How do we help them to prioritize their health? I think that is such a huge thing. And the other thing is too, is it's like it's okay for them to say no because a no today could be a yes tomorrow,
Yeah.
when they get, their world situated and they learn to prioritize those things. So, we just talked about some of the things that you experience that are vastly different practicing overseas. Is there something that you learned abroad that you wish more US practitioners understood?
I wish they understood the value of what they bring to the table, especially the chiropractic physicians. We are saving lives naturally by helping the body help itself. And there is huge value in that. And sometimes, especially young doctors, when they're trying to get started, they will devalue or lower their prices and advertise low prices, which then, of course, hurts the entire profession because then insurance companies start going, oh, well, this doc's advertising, a free exam or free x-rays or a $19 first visit with free exam and x-rays. And so then they devalue what we do to us across the country in the insurance plans that are offered out there. And that's why I love how CHUSA does this is your fee should be your fee. You need to get comfortable in your skill set where you are at, whether you are a certified motor vehicle collision expert or a certified pediatric expert or sports injury expert. Because we have 43 different diplomates in chiropractic out there. And I'm going to this is one thing I definitely want to see us apply is find your niche and what you really like and just go after it because it's so much easier to refer to somebody who is not a jack of all trades. When a chiropractic physician is putting out in the community that I'm a sports physician expert, I've done advanced training in this and I'm certified in that rather than just saying I'm a self-proclaimed expert who went to a seminar one weekend, that's not ethical. B, it's confusing. People think all chiropractors are the same. The general population thinks that because we've created that. Where in the medical model, if we look at our medical brothers and sisters, they have started to pick their specialty. You don't see a general practitioner much anymore. And so they know who and how to refer to other people if it's outside of their lane and they stay in their lane. And that builds a more successful practice for yourself and for others. And we could do that too as chiropractors if we just knew I refer to pediatric specialist chiropractors all the time. I refer to sports chiropractors all the time. When a car crash patient comes in and maybe their shoulder's not responding, it's like, all right, I'll work with this a little bit. If it's not responding, let me refer them to a specialist. And I'd rather refer them to another chiropractic specialist than just a medical one. But in the personal injury world, we definitely need to cross over and have multiple licenses on that and be comfortable working with other doctors and other specialties. We are not competition, not with the medical doctors, not with other chiropractors. We are co-opetition for the patient if we just work together. But we've got to carve our niche. Otherwise, it creates confusion for everybody. Nobody knows how to refer to us or when to refer to us.
I love that you brought up specialties and that we're talking about the value of care at the same time, because how do you think chiropractors should think about setting their fees that reflect their advanced training while still communicating the value to patients? Because I think one of the things I love most about this profession are all the different specialties. I just interviewed a couple weeks ago a pediatric chiropractor, Dr. Tony Ebel. Thank goodness he's a pediatric chiropractor and a specialist and expert in his field. He changed my foster daughter's life when the medical world gave up on her, and she lives a happy, healthy life, not knowing what her future looked like if he hadn't been the person to intervene. And yet there are other great chiropractors that have been on this um, podcast as well. You have Dr. Cindy Howard, and she is she's an incredible practitioner, um, who just incredible, right? But all these different chiropractors have specialties, and it's really interesting because I love that you talk about the value of care and all these different specialties and really embracing that, and not being a jack of all trades. But it really does come to how do you go about setting your fees to reflect that advanced training, because I think that's important because the medical world definitely does that where I think we fall short.
Yeah, 100%. Well, be confident. One, like Chusa teaches, your fee is your fee. But how do you set your fees? And that's where either if you're going to specialize in personal injury, which is what I specialize in coach in, some states have a relative value scale and you should set your fees. It doesn't need to be 100%. Those are higher fees than the average, but it should be higher up there. And that's your fee because that's your specialty. If you're trained and you can back it up. I did an interview with Dr. Williams, and I love that guy. He's so awesome. We did a special training on taking Medicare fees and how you 150% or double them or something and then you set your fees at that, but you have to be able to back up why you do that. And once you do that, that's your fee. And I love how you guys say it. Your fee is your fee. Now, if you're going to discount from that for somebody who's not your specialty, a family wellness package or a cash patient or something, that's where you need to do something like CHUSA, where you have a legal way to do it. And coming back to what I learned worldwide traveling and practicing and living in other countries, 95% of the lawsuits in the world are in America. We are a very litigious society. So we can't just think, oh, I'm trying to do things the right way. It feels good to me, so it's got to be ethical to the community. Not so much. Just because our values reflect something doesn't mean it's necessarily legal or is going to hold up in court. You've got to dot your I's and cross your T's. You have to work with the right coaches and people to help you avoid the pitfalls of legalities if you're not doing your paperwork right, if you're not setting up your fees properly. That's where it gets scary. And I know a lot of docs out there are just innocently doing dual fee systems and things like that are wrong. So,
Well, and I love that you talk about that. And there is a way to calculate fair market value. And ladies and gentlemen out there, if you don't have someone, a coach or somebody or consultant, email us and we'll give you the data so you can figure that out for yourself. But I mean, it really comes down to zip code. And then again, doing that adjustment for your specialty, which is so incredibly important. It's really interesting is that my childhood best friend, from birth to earth, um, we've been friends for over 40 years, and she is a paralegal at a PI law firm in Florida. And it's so interesting how often she will literally reach out to me because we both keep talking about ethically and compliantly. And like one of her jobs is for her clients and her caseload is they look for ethical chiropractors for their patients. And it's so crazy to me when she has to come in. I'm like, girl, I don't know every chiropractor in the world, but give me a zip code and let me see what I know. Right. But I mean, that is so very, very important. And y'all can think about that while we take a break and hear from our sponsors. Welcome back to our podcast with our guest today, Dr. Jay Shetlin. So let's talk about personal injury. Why do you believe PI work is an important clinical specialty for chiropractors today?
yeah, I think it's really a specialty because it's beyond just healthcare. healthcare, rehab from injuries. It's a med legal case where not only does your care matter, but documentation of your care matters. Otherwise, the patient is hurt. We don't realize, it's not even on our radar. We don't realize that we don't know, and we could be doing damage or harm to the case, thus hurting the restitution for that patient financially if we don't document things right, and especially co-care with other doctors so that there are multiple licenses on the case. Our job is the care, but part of that care is documentation, telling the story, because if we don't do that right, there is no ammunition for the attorneys to fight those big insurance companies that are trying to devalue what happened to our patient, their client. And so med legal cases, they do require some specialty. And this is where I'm saying, I said earlier, I'm going to push some buttons. There are some ethical things out there that I really struggle with. And it's going to offend somebody. I don't mean it offensively, but I mean it to light a fire under your butt where if you're not doing the right things, that you maybe change course. Because I don't think it's ethical for us to treat the insurance instead of the patient. Oh, this state offers PIP of 2,000 or MedPay of 2,000 or 3,000. And when we get to that point, it's like, oh, your insurance says you're done, because now it's going to be harder work for the doctor to do billing and maybe get collections, or have to sign a lien and work with an attorney, and they're not comfortable with that. So they just let the patient go. That's not
Um,
ethical. We need to treat the patient, not the insurance company. And that's where, if you get trained properly and you selectively choose good ethical attorneys to work with, and you build a team, and maybe a medical team that you're working with as well, doctors, surgeons, orthopedic docs, pain management clinics and doctors. So you build a team where you, as the chiropractor, are kind of leading the team. You're the quarterback of the personal injury care and case. That's a whole different ballgame. Now it becomes exciting, but it takes training to do that. And if we don't, again, we're hurting the care and the case of that patient. And to me, that's an ethical problem, because we can't say, oh, I didn't know. We don't know what we don't know, and it's doing harm. And we have taken an oath to first do no harm. Well, in the medical legal case, the way we do that is we get trained to handle it.
Love that you brought that up too about not ending care when insurance ends. I mean, practitioners, chiropractors get so offended when patients stop coming in because their insurance stopped covering care. When my son was 8 or 9 years old, he decided to jump from a tire swing and broke his leg. And I don't mean just broke his leg. He was in a wheelchair for 5 weeks, and then he was on crutches for another 4 weeks, and he was in a walking cast for another 4 weeks. We get through the end of this 13-week process because he decided to jump from a tire swing at my best friend's wedding right before we
Yikes.
walked down the aisle. I know. Um, and the natural thing is your leg has been wrapped up in a cast for 13 weeks. You're going to need physical therapy. And his pediatric orthopedic specialist, who is like top in the state, we get to the end of all of this, and I said, "Are you going to make the recommendation? Like, are you going to do the referral to physical therapy?" And he said, "Well, Miss Hudson, your insurance doesn't cover physical therapy for children under the age of 12." That's all I said. So I asked him again. I don't care what my insurance covers. This is my child, who's also an athlete. So we're not going to leave this undone. And he tells me again that my insurance doesn't cover it. Now, I work for an incredible chiropractor who has a full PT department in his office. And so that wasn't a big deal. But I was so angry by that entire thing. And I felt that that was malpractice. You're leaving my child. Um, you only took his treatment to this point because that's what insurance would cover, but he wasn't completely healed and he wasn't ready. And so for me, that was malpractice. I was very angry about it, and I think I'm pretty sure that was like the theme of a couple of articles to the chiropractic profession for several months is insurance doesn't know better than you. So,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
but speaking of kids, I know there are a lot of chiropractors out there who are fearful of treating children that have been involved in automobile accidents. Why do you think this is such a common fear?
Well, kids aren't just miniature people. I mean, they're totally different. Sometimes, I mean, you look at an X-ray of a kid's head and they got multiple teeth. It looks like an alien or something. Okay, they're adorable. Kids are adorable, but yeah, it's just so different. Especially and I address this in my book, uh, "The Physician's Guide to Personal Injury." It was the only published book that addressed kids in car accidents until the new ICPA book came out, and Dr. Dan Murphy added a chapter on that. Bless his heart, because he's just a wealth of knowledge. We've got to treat kids after car accidents because the insurance companies, they're not either they're not trained in this or they don't train their adjusters, because oftentimes we'll hear, oh, kids don't get hurt in car accidents. You kidding me? It's the number one cause of death for kids. How are you saying they're not injured in car accidents? So you look at a little baby in a car seat, for example, and we've got to think of this, docs, three-dimensionally, because we're used to just dealing with adults. We do adults all the time. We're adjusting adults all the time. And maybe we're doing wellness kid adjustments. Great. But with a child, let's just put them in a car seat. Say they're 6 months old. Their head is 1/3 of their entire body size. 1/3. These muscles are not developed yet. Some of them are just barely starting to be able to hold their head up at 6 months. Their body is strapped into this car seat. And you also often watch the videos that say, look, you should keep a kid rear facing for as long as possible. Why is that? Because we're all driving forward. So statistically speaking, most crashes are a frontal impact. But most patients that we see as chiropractic physicians are going to be rear impacts. So now if that kid is rear facing and it's a rear impact collision, that's the equivalent of a frontal impact. While their body's strapped in, their head just went whipped like crazy in just a split second. And mom and dad don't see that because they're looking straight ahead, driving the car or whatever. So we've got to look at these kids from a different perspective. And when we're working up a child, this is where it gets hard in personal injury. If they're a year or less, they're not communicating very well. Even at 5 years old, they don't know how to communicate pain and headaches and things like that very well. So you've got to really deep dive and drill in with the questions with the parents. How's the kid sleeping? If they're still breastfeeding, are they latching on okay and nursing okay? Has it changed because stress will affect your digestive system. Stress affects our nervous system, thus everything, including our digestive system. Maybe they're having more diarrhea or constipation. These are questions you need to ask. And that's why if you don't want to deep dive into this stuff, refer them out to a certified pediatric specialist because they get the training in this stuff. They've done 3 years of advanced training beyond the average chiropractor with kids. Co-care. It's okay to co-care. They're not going to steal your patients. They're going to either work up, write it up, and either do some care for them or refer back to you with guidelines on what to do for the kids. But kids definitely need special care after a car accident. And, just looking at the money side of it, because it's not about the money. I teach this as our mantra in the Whiplash Group. Income is a byproduct of service. Just give outstanding service and the income will come. If you have a mom comes in, are you asking, was anybody else in the car? Were the kids in the car? Well, they were. Okay. Well, they're fine though. Okay. Don't ignore that. They need to get checked. Encourage that mom or dad to get those kids checked. And here's why. Ready for this, Christy? What do we do with a car seat after any car crash, even a 5-mile-an-hour car crash? What are we legally responsible to do?
Throw it out and get a new one.
Throw it out. It's garbage. That thing is done. Why aren't we getting the precious cargo that was in that car seat checked by a certified specialist to make sure they're okay? That's just an important part to leverage on that for kids. And there's so much good research out there. The reason I wrote that chapter in the book for the kids is there isn't research out there for kids in car accidents. For example, for those of you that have seen the Croft research and the San Diego Spinal Research Institute studies where there are videos of cars crashing into each other and they're measuring the physics applied to a human body. Nobody's going to put their kid in a car and have another car crash into it and go, okay, Sally, mom and dad are going to be over here. You're going to hear a crash sound. You'll be okay. We're just going to measure the physics applied to your body in this crash. Nobody's going to do that. Their DSF or whatever is going to get called on those parents. So nobody's going to do that. So we have to extrapolate data that's already out there. And the most common one, and this is what I reference in my book, is shaken baby syndrome. One, the car crash is a bullet vehicle in motion striking a target vehicle with the child occupant inside and the physical forces applied to that child. The other, so that was unexpected. The other is expected, where somebody lost their temperature and lost their temper and shook that child, creating an acceleration, deceleration injury, oftentimes with the head slightly turned, creating injury in the neck and torso. Same types of injuries, same types of physics. One was intentional, one was accidental or unexpected. Does that make sense? Did I explain that?
It does. And it's really interesting because I was thinking about the research aspect, but nobody is ever going to let their child be in a car accident on purpose for the sake of research.
For research, absolutely.
Wow. That just, you just don't think about those things. Really? Well, as chiropractors deepen their specialty training, whether it's in PI, pediatric sports, or whatever, how do you feel this elevates both patient outcomes and the profession as a whole? Because that's kind of what we've been talking about the whole time.
You mean the pediatric care? How does it affect?
Well, no, instead of being the jack of all trades chiropractors, if we start going into these niche, more and more chiropractors say, you know what, I'm really passionate about? I'm really passionate about helping people out after a car accident, or I'm really passionate about pediatrics or sports. I mean, there's a lot of that out there. It's growing in popularity, especially with our newer chiropractors coming
Hmm.
into the profession. But what do you think, like, as this becomes more and more prevalent in a specialty chiropractic world, how do you feel that that elevates the patient's outcomes and the profession as a whole going into the future?
Yeah, I think once we specialize in something, the confidence we bring to the table to better serve our patients is huge. That pours out into our patients and then more out into our community. And that's where I love that we are not competition, we are competition. Like you said earlier, maybe now's not the right time, but if we educate them properly, either they're going to come back or they're going to go to Joe or Sally chiropractor down the street. We still helped save more lives through education and chiropractic. It was just more of us that did it. And when we stop worrying about me, and just go, "Well, let's just serve chiropractic, let's serve our community. Enough of it comes back to us, everybody wins. And we're helping
I
other
love that.
people grow their practice. It's just that law of reciprocity. It can't help but come back to us in some other way. It's not going to be, you know, direct quid pro quo maybe, but it's going to come back to us somehow. And that's when, if all of us were thinking more that way, wow, it'd just be a much more beautiful chiropractic environment, and our communities would all thrive better.
Oh, I
I
agree.
don't know if I answered your question exactly the way you were
No,
looking.
that actually it really, really did, and it I could have been, you know, y'all, I've been up for, like, who knows how many hours. Bless it. I told Dr. J, like, my brain doesn't fire on all cylinders, and sometimes y'all know how it is. What you think and what comes out of your mouth are 2 different things, but you did answer my question. Um, I love that you keep saying that we're not competition, and I preach this a lot too, is that we don't have enough chiropractors to be competitors. Um a couple of months ago, I was in Oregon for the Forward Thinking Chiropractic event, and we were looking for a coffee shop, a local coffee shop to go. And one of them on their social media page had this sticker. This is how we chose them. It said, "We're not competition, we're a community." And I wanted
That's
that
awesome.
sticker so bad. They didn't have it. But we went to that coffee shop like every day for 3 days because I saw that sticker on their social media page and we wanted the sticker. In fact, she's supposed to let me know when they get it back in, and they're going to mail it to me here in Mississippi, and y'all are going to see me with it at every chiropractic event because we are not competition. We are a community. There's just no room for infighting. Okay, before we
For
wrap this
sure.
thing up,
For sure. Yeah. Well,
we're gonna.
before you wrap it up, let me just say, on the YouTube, it's free. You can check out the 10 common mistakes chiropractors make in personal injury. Maybe that gives you a little spark of, is personal injury interesting to me or not? But know enough about it to know when to refer, or to go to spark that fire in you to get more training in it. It's not for everybody, just like pediatrics isn't for everybody. And that's the beautiful part. And just circling back to our areas of specialty, it's Pareto's law is what it's called, where it's the 80-20 rule. And this is the saddest thing to me, but it's not just chiropractors. I'm not picking on chiropractors. This is every business out there. 80% of people in a business, or we'll just use us, 80% of chiropractors are struggling to get by. And the biggest reason is they're a jack of all trades. The 20% that are seeing 80% of the patients in the world have picked their niche, their specialty. It's easier for people to refer to them and to attract to them because of that. So it's a crazy stat that I've heard from so many coaches out there and business coaches in different professions besides chiropractic, but I have heard it from the stage in chiropractic over and over again too. So that's why I just want to encourage you to specialize. Find what lights your fire and just get really good at it, and let the community know, even your other chiropractors, that that's your passion. Okay, sorry,
I
Christy.
was just gonna say that. I was actually, it's like, don't just pick a niche because you know somebody who's done really well in it. Um, Tony talked about in his podcast interview about authenticity. And if it's not where your heart is, it will show and it will impact your overall business. But if you find that one thing you love, whether it's PI or pediatrics or functional med or sports chiropractic, there's so many specialties.
Yeah.
Um, find the one that you find interesting, that when you're getting your diplomat or your advanced training, that you just cannot get enough of those classes because you find them so interesting and you can't wait to go out into the world and impact your community. I love this. I love this topic of discussion so much. Like, big heart,
Yeah, nice.
big heart. All right, before you go, we're going to ask you a just for fun question. Let's see. We have a couple. Okay. What is a talent you have that most people don't know about?
I would think it is. I've been fluent in 4 languages in my lifetime. I consider myself illiterate in 4 languages right now. 'Cause- but one of them is sign language, and I think it's my first wife was deaf, bless her heart, and so when we learned about the Harvey Lillard story and him getting his hearing back, I love the sign language and using that with her. But what was interesting, we would adjust her every way we knew how. It's like we got to get see this, and she never got her hearing back, but she stopped wearing glasses. So everybody's body responds differently. I love that part about chiropractic. Um, I'm just going to say this. Sorry, this isn't really about my thing, but other than sign language and Portuguese and Korean, I was fluent in those languages at one point in my life. I actually have a minor in Korean, though I don't remember much of it now. Um, we were at a convention. Sorry, I'm just telling a story here. We were at a
No, go
convention,
ahead.
and before it started, the sign language interpreter, they just kind of chit chat, started talking, and like she usually does with them before the event starts. And she goes, "Well, how'd you become an interpreter?" And check this out. This isn't a Harvey Lillard story from the modern day. She goes, "Well, I started losing my hearing in high school. Became completely deaf, so I had to learn sign language. And then I was in college. I was 23 years old, and I started having all these headaches. And my roommate said, 'You need to go to a chiropractor for your headache.' And I went and got adjusted at the chiropractor, and my hearing came back. So I became a sign language interpreter. Isn't that crazy?"
That
So
is such a cool story, though. I love that. My sister, that was her language that she did in high school. She had to take a language. She did American Sign Language. But I love that you said I was once fluent in those. My son, when he was growing up, like he was like in 3 or 4 year old preschool, our closest friends. The husband is Chinese and his wife is Vietnamese. So in their house, they speak Mandarin, Vietnamese, and English. Mom speaks Vietnamese and English. Dad speaks Mandarin and English. So the only common language that the whole family has is English. But the kids speak all 3 languages. So when my son would spend the night, the kids would speak in Mandarin so their mom wouldn't know what they were talking about. And we were in the grocery store, and I mean, he had to be like 5 or 6, and he's just talking to himself and he's occupying himself. And that's how it is at the end of the day when they're just behaving in the grocery store. You just go with it. And I think he's just talking nonsense to himself. And this woman walks up and she starts talking nonsense back to him. And he responds, and she's like, "You are such a good mother that you taught your son to speak Mandarin fluently." And I was like, "What?" I was like,
nice.
"Where did you learn that?" So he tells me about it, and I'm immediately calling dad and going, "You are never going to believe this." I'm like, "Did you know your kids do this?" And he was like, "I did, but I didn't know they taught him."
Wow.
Yes,
It's
but he doesn't
languages
speak
are
it at
so awesome
all.
to help our kids get early. It's such a powerful tool to have. Just helps certain parts of the brain.
I know, which is completely amazing to me that my child from his again, they've been friends since birth. Here he is about 5 years old, and he is speaking Mandarin like it is no business. We've never heard him say that because apparently he only does it at their house.
How about that?
But he's 19 now, and does he speak it? No. Does he understand it? Like a couple of words people will say, and he can pick stuff out. And I'm like, really? But it's interesting. The brain is a beautiful thing.
It is.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Shetlin, for being on our podcast today. Thank you for letting me fill in for Dr. Foxworth as your guest host today. And doctors, if you're offering discounts, make sure you're not violating state or federal rules or regulations. The fines are really no joke. Our profitable discount strategy keeps your discounts fully compliant and profitable. It starts with a free, no obligation call to see if we can help you here at ChiroSphere, just like we've helped thousands of doctors nationwide who, as a result of using us, have seen a 20% revenue boost and 50% patient retention. Over 18 years, over 7,000 chiropractors have helped 4.3 million patient family members get affordable chiropractic care through ChiroHealth USA. And if you want a more revenue, better retention, and peace of mind, give us a call at 888-719-9990 or visit CHUSA.com and check us out. And if you just don't like talking on the phone, you can live chat us on the website, and we're happy to talk to you, answer your calls. But thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be a part of our day. And I hope you have an amazing day. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, y'all.